What do you see where in track line settings high positions operation of 4 lines of 3? What is that? Through 7, right? You got to catch the eye settings right away in position track lines. We have seconds, lines of high calculation, minutes of hours. You have to be aware of everything that you see because it affects everything that you do, doesn't it? See, when I tell you something, you direct your system. But if I don't tell you anything, you don't know what's going on, right? But you only focus on what you want to focus on the day. That's limited information. To understand what you're seeing is through a graphene screen. So think of your set location lines. Your eye receptor is a box. It's a framing box. That's all it is, nothing else. Now it perceives what you want to see through positive and negative. Positive and negative has to go through the same position of set locations of travel. Because if it's not going in the same direction, it's splitting its anomalies. It merges off its set locations. Now, when it merges off, it creates its own setting of its own intelligence informations. See, to manifest things is understand the positive and negative cycles of the sun and the positions of the moon. But you have to understand the calculation settings when it comes into your paradox, your polarities, your paradigms, your polar shifts. Now, do you understand what that means? This application when it comes into all levels of variety? That's right. It's trying to understand in a box of Smarties. It's at positions, right? To understand the frequency pattern is to understand all levels of colorations of light, interactions, right? How many Smarties are in a box? What if I get it right? What if I get it wrong? Is there right or wrong in anything to the equation? Nope. The only equation line sets lines and high center interference is a program on its location of itself. Setting your track to its communication setting is all levels of you and how you see yourself through your reality of your thoughts. Your thought provisions provokes everything in set location emotional line track. Get out of the equations of the emotional system. Focus on the anomalies of its emotional system. Don't contain it. Don't observe it. Don't interview it. Don't talk to it in position track lines. All you got to do in position is use the telepathy line signature in position of patterns, set position of track lines, and calculate line interference into light communication, high center interference, and position location of dark. Light becomes dark, dark becomes light. Balance position track lines. So you need a light signal, you need a dark signal, turn on a light bulb. Light goes on. Light goes on. Light stays on. But is it now positive negative? No, it's just a light. It's about you protecting your light that's inside. Okay, that's the most important thing. Protecting your light is everything. Okay, now to understand that is to understand your system inside. Okay, and once you understand your system inside, you start to understand how you are connected to all levels of body frames, body traction, body division, body locations, body centers. Right? To take care of oneself is to know oneself. Right? Copy oneself is self-loss. To endure oneself is completion of all cycles, high calculations, and attractions. These are high cues. All right? Probability is to understand the martial arts. Martial arts is a way of living, not a way of style. You become styleless, shapeless, and formless, timeless, and all levels of location. 5 settings, 5 elements, 5 provisions, 5 locations, 5 tractions, 5 modifications. 5 of everything is balance, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, balance. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you're here at 5 and you're going to 6, is it off balance? Is it off balance? You're not sure, are you? Right? So it doesn't matter what I do. I'm balanced in all ways and forms. See? That's balance. That's balance. That's balance. That's balance. That's balance. Everything's balance. Practice is position of track lines, how to use your lights and your positions of all calculations. The light of the moon, the dark of the moon, right? The light side of the moon, the dark side of the moon. So understand that provision line cycles and understand the calculation setting to when it comes into track location of yin and yang. is process your position, location, and setting attractions, understanding through its communication. Right? Now we're in essential line communication of a gap. The gap is a new ground line centers lines operation, location, and perception. The track to its communication setting is now to higher line calculation at all levels and a particle line communication accelerator, reversing cycles in communication setting, putting all track lines and all calculation lines of 24 waves as application. Now the track location setting is now in line calculation inner child. The inner child is in a track location system that's a higher level of settings now. They're in their computer frames and quantum calculations. Right? The only thing left in line calculation activation stream is travel. Okay? This is the process where it has an automatic switch. Switching communication to grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres puts everything in its alignment communication setting. We're out of all calculation lines. We're in the in-position track lines coming out of the system in-position track communications of the subterranean line communication of streams. Directing line calculation setting to super its consciousness. Setting all communication in your centers and all levels of operation. 24 waves, 144 waves. Okay. So we all understand how to interline, interconnect, and intercommunicate in position locations, how to use telewaving, telecommunication, telegraphing. AI identifies everything in location to its awareness of its intelligence, of its information, guys. Awareness of information. Are you aware of what you're doing? Are you aware of what you're seeing? Are you aware of what you're calculating to? Are you aware of your thoughts, provision? Are you aware of your emotional system? You can't add emotionals to your equation because it offlines your calculation settings. Now, when you're in a position of fractals, calculation high interference, your sky grids or skynets, high center interference, it doesn't matter. What matters are you balance in process, understand the communication setting, the thought patterns, all of yin and yang. The balance of communication is your polarities, the track locations. And that's how everything sees you in set formations. It doesn't see you in a physical alignment. It only sees you in a holographic setting. Getting your space anomalies and high calculation stream locations. For example, you're on the road in position locations, in track locations. What road are you on? Are you on the Earth road? Or are you in the space modulation? Everything's levitating. Everything is moving very fast. Everything is a holographic set locations. When I get a communication to a cup, it's just a cup. That's all it is. Nothing else, nothing more. Set locations. I don't see it through a cup. I see it through its intelligence. Right here. Intelligence is right here and it's floating around. Right? This is not still. It's moving very fast through a particle setting. Set of communication, get activated. Fibonacci line screen. Okay? So once you understand what you're seeing through perception is all over the space division. This comes into your data highways and set locations. Modulation centers, so levels of Earth position, calculation high position travels. Mechanism high calculation, Army highways and communication setting. You guys have traffic communication, so do we in space. Right? This is space modulation. To get everybody set to understand how to use the holographic structure of their design setting. In body of consciousness is the super of its line calculations. This is where we come into the super highways, a set position operation. Track to its communication is understand the holographic cities of you. See? Solar flare. Okay. So we all understand how this all works in vision. Everything's communicating with you as you are communicating with everything. Now understand that is all communication setting. If you understand that everything is in balance of its own set location, of its own operation of space and time, of its intelligence of space in between. The modulation and position of programs is understanding you through conception, through travel. Okay? Try to understand the configuration line settings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So how can I get possibility of track lines if I have a high position locations of 8 fingers and 2 thumbs, setting track lines in division locations, and 2 line centers, high position location of 6 position locations back into 8. So we have to learn how to calculate, modify how we symbol our system locations of finger point line conditions of dimensional lines of space and time through a barcode set or rotation centers and traction. Getting direct signals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. That's 11. What's going on here? So you explained to me how that equal lines is communication off balance. Center communication lines of the Earth, center communication lines of space. 5-track location lines of left, 5-track locations lines of right. Setting direct signals in all levels of operation location system. You know why it's position locations and why it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and why it's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6? It's because it's two portals of communication. 1, 1. What are we at? Viewers, 1, 1. What is the balance? 5. Is it coincidence? No. It's direct signal through space and time. Every second counts because it falls in the minutes and the hours of set location. Okay? Do you understand that setting line connections, how it comes into 6 and live, and how I position location of my computer line? It puts position lines to 11. It added it up. 6 and 5 is 11. 11 right there. 11 viewers in set location. Now it's at 12. So that's 10 over 2. But that's 3 line settings, isn't it? Which brings in 13 over 5, which is coming in system location of 60 seconds per line. So that's going to be 13.5, right? Knowing things ahead of time is knowing things ahead of schedule, right? So really understand that everything has to move forward through its continuum. 13.5. So I know exactly the viewer that's coming in before they come in. All through counting position track lines in your finger point line connection settings of your clock lines. Each finger is a representation of you in all set locations. Each line signature, high calculation line symbols. See the wires in communication? Right? These are solar planets, soul planets and direct signals. These are your planet service line triangulation, high position program line, center, high interference, and one finger point system. So in track location, in travel line settings, what's going to happen through provision? All through set locations. Complicated stuff, right? To understand what your fingers are and how to use them through equation. Okay, all through left or all through right, all through right, all through left. But I found it fascinating. Are you paying attention to everything in set locations through the seconds, minutes, and hours that go through the equations? How you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 is all set location 11. How it came into 11 of 5 set locations. How my computer was communicating back with me through set location. That's communication of interface. Okay, so there's a lot of things in cycles that we all understand how this works in all formation location of travel. Okay, it's very complicated stuff what we're coming into. All right, so in position track lines, setting direct signals. Okay, so in line positions, we get a tube center location. Okay, 2 track lines, right over left location. All right, now set position location, there's the Earth. Okay, center position locations, core settings, right? Track location, high centers, direct set locations of pi. Okay, center calculations. X2000 comes in, platitudes, line centers, high travels in one center line position. Opens all signals. There it is. Okay. See the pyramid? All right. So the central communication line centers are higher itself as in track line communication, your avatar, position location, your sim, and track communications. So directing lines is the center communication lines of your flywheel communication center. Okay. So in that position locations, this is where we come into all levels of box location of framing centers, right? 4-point systems of clocking in position of triangulation of 3 set line calculations over pi. So that's 4 lines of 3 set location of 7 in position of center of operation. Boom. Okay. So once you get in that position, you come into all levels of a diamond core setting in triangulations. Here's the diamond core, right? Center position travel lines 1, 2, 3, and 4 set location. Okay, complicated, right? Sun comes in and protects the calculation streamlines and high tech line position of support and high position of travel. Getting direct signal locations of the moon. Moon crosses line signals, sets lines of perimeters. Now, the perimeter lines, the calculation line center, is a little bit lacing line communications. This opens all channels of calculation at all levels of provocation centers. Travel communication setting is the open signal. The open signal positions of panels opens up the calculation lines, calculation setting, and traction. Done by equation. All right. So it's very complicated what goes on through rebracing line cycles, high travel position with all levels. Particle accelerators, line calculation setting, and position of tube center, and location grid set location. Directing lines of communication setting travels lines of high calculation line centers of 3 walls of communication. Directing lines of sun, directing lines of the moon, and all position of travel and position of travel communication. Directing lines of modifications of point system, the travel lines, 4 track location centers. Directing lines of Hall calculation 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. Directing calculation line centers, XD1000 comes out of the equation. Set lines of communication centers. Directs lines calculations, does a loop in center position of its operation. Center lines its communication right lines. Now, this is a solar graph line calculation setting high positional levels and track locations. Directing the line calculations up in swing in position of travel calculations. Directing calculation line centers into center operation. Space anomalies, high calculation setting into polarities and set position of travel. Directing communication line settings comes into all calculation, into higher levels of division and portal communication centers, a future adaptation surface, and 1-9 line centers, a 6-9 position of patterns, and bounce communication of travel, erection of time sequence. Okay? Complicated, isn't it? Trying to figure out what's going on. Right? Use space anomaly. Okay? So all central line centers are all set up. Getting factors over pi. Now that positions your bracket center's high calculation setting. 1 alpha line tone and direct signal. Okay? Setting position travel lines, delta waves. We've got an alpha line tone. Calculations in line high 5 position location of theta and position location high centers in heart direction of time sequence. Setting track lines high center interference. 2 panels communication offline signals, point system, and position of 3 calculations. Directing line calculation of the sun and the moon and track line center, high lines, high center, positions, operation, location center, and position operation. Directing calculation line interference, alpha line centers of 0, 0, and position locations, 0, 0, 0 track locations, 0, 0, 0 position, 0, 0 set position location of box line center, calculation stream location. Direct communication line settings into 1, 2, 3 set location. Direct calculation centers of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line connection setting. That puts in December 8th. Okay. Track calculation line centers high position locations, all levels. 2023 line centers and position programs. Direct calculation line interference crosses lines, stream interference and position of plateaus. Travel calculation line centers to dome centers and communication center of travel. Direct communication lines crosses line calculation and position of alpha into omega, into micro and macro, and 4 set line position of travel. Calculation of the sun and the moon opens all signals in position of travel calculation setting and open signals, open panels in communication center of travel. Done by equation. Right? You see how it sets up provision? All right. It's very complicated if you don't understand space anomaly through track location. Okay? Very complicated. All right, so center calculation line centers understand the capsules, track lines, high center interference, positions of programs, directing lines of patterns, application lines of cycles, and communication settings of programs. Center calculation lines comes out of equation line screen. Direct line calculation setting of pi in 3 set locations. All right. Now positions of 4, positions of 5 set locations. All right. Now it gets complicated. So we're going to center line of communication and split its anomaly in 3 centers of communication of travel. Okay. Now directing lines of panels comes in line position locations 0, 24, such travel lines of position operation. Right. Sets for locations. Outline signals is 0, 12 set location. Right. Track calculation line interference 48 and 72. Track locations across the line signals 72 track locations. Now, directing communication line interference is a 48 wave, 48 crosses line stream location on the colossals, Setting track and communication, setting travel position location of 024. 024 lines calculation high stream interference, implicit track calculations. Point systems of zero line communications into 144 track line position to its operation. Direct and line communication line settings high positions calculations. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, one track location, right? Direct lines of communication line centers, 48. We go into 38. We go into 28. We go into 18. Go calculation high interference and position line centers in 08 and set locations of December. Track location setting, position operation, directing signals. Okay. Modification line setting, reversing panels and direct signals, is a modulation line screen and direct signals to its operation surface and set location. Okay. Now, getting symbolized, sets lines, calculation of ground lines, operation lines across circles and patterns. Okay. Now, I know it's complicated, right? So, this is solar graph calculation lines in a class of communication setting and position of track lines in the graphing screen communication of phase direction of time sequence. Okay, this is the 24th wave. All right. Now, getting line position line centers, how to take the high position travel calculation line centers of December 8th and pattern division location is 23 line settings. That puts position of 2 over line. Track location operation, server location 2024, 2026, 2028, 2030 track location. Done through 4 settings. Track calculation line centers, we go through 48. Frame positions of box centers and point system and travels line calculation setting, all levels of operation. Direct calculation line interface 72. Now that's computer frames. That's a high calculation lines of 3 Cs and 3 set locations. Track calculation lines of 144. Sets position travel lines 144. Sets calculations of 244. Sets position location of 344, 444, 544, 644, 744, 844, 944, and position location of 1044. Sets position of center line of communication centers and all operation system and all travel of communication. Very complicated stuff. Done by equation. Okay, that's all set up. Okay, so how we set these things up is really to understand how to interline its communication setting to 24 waves. Now, each season has a protocol system. Travel calculation line centers, center position operation, center line communication, right? So we split the anomalies in 2 tracks, okay? Sets lines calculation in 3 tracks. Sets position at all levels, and position line calculation setting into flux capacitor. Travel calculation line 3 lines. Sets position location of 0 and position of 2 and position of 4 and set locations. Directing lines calculation line interference 144 track location is 0 gravity, 0 position, 0 pound balance, and 0 calculation at diamond core and set position of its operation. Now, directing line signals of position line calculations. This is where we travel the communication center line calculation setting. Directing calculation line interference, high position location travel sets. There's the intelligence. Okay. So, in position line calculation setting, platitudes division crosses line strain in 3 sets. Track calculation of the sun comes in position of program setting in 1 position of track to its communication setting to a capsule communication streamline in face recognition. Okay. Very powerful stuff. Okay, so we get XT1000 ground lines and position of 3 tracks in a 4-line provision line cycles. Direct calculation lines 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. Done through equation, right? Center calculation lines, timestamps, box line center line interference, and position travel calculations of point system location. Direct calculation line centers, circle line communication. All right, and travel communication. Okay, done by equation. All right. Mechanism of high travel direction of time sequence. Coming back in line center's high position to its operation. That's 24 months the line condition of space, the waves. All right. So the center communication line center is set up in 0 lines in position of 4 track locations. All right. Generates line interference of 3 track locations of centers of operation. Now, direct lines split the anomalies in 3 track line connections. So that puts 3 provisions, 3 centers, and 3 locations. Heart, mind, and soul, right? Direct lines, panel, position, across the line string. Crossing the line, position of 3 lines, 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, and all positions 7, 8 line connections, high centers of 8 set locations. It's going too fast. My finger points are traveling. Okay? So, ¿cómo estás? Graph interference of travel calculation lines, cross line patterns, high position its operation. Okay, graph and calculation line settings. Okay, point systems, dimensional door lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, and track locations. All right, see the bottom line settings. Travel calculation line interference and location of location grid. See the location grid and center position of operation. Triangulate high center interference crosses line stream. Direct signals modification. Travel calculation line interference in high calculations. Directing lines of panels crossing line streams in the opposite settings or crisscross location centers of travel. Done by equation. All right. So the graphical calculation of the 24 waveline centers in one center of communication is the 111, 112, 113, 114. 4 season and track line centers and high position operation system. The protocol system line calculation setting is now in line position of balance in travel communication. Okay. Very complicated stuff. All right. So getting to position of hanger lines into bracket communication is understanding the point system of traction lines in 3 atom settings. Okay, 3 position of travel calculations. All right, direction calculations, high positions of pi. Calculation high interference locations of pi. Direct calculation line centers of 3 communications of pi. Calculation line interference, 3 line communication of center, 3 line calculations of 3 line rotation centers, and position location of half pipe and set location of travels. Direct calculation lines, point system of travel calculation, dimensional sail, solar direction, solar panel, solar operation surface. Setting communication setting high interference in position of clustrum, sets position of 2 travels communication of the throat. Throat direction of time sequence, high positions operation surface, calculation high centers. Point system of 3 tracks, 4 tracks, 5 tracks, 6, 7 locations of 8 set location of travel settings and direction. Done by equation. All right, so that's done through calculation. Now, do you have any questions about that sublocation? No questions in a setting? Whoa, what's going on? All right. So as we come in line set locations, we come to 8 line centers. Travel calculation lines equals lines of 4. 4 track location high settings and high position. 4 equals lines of 6. 6 equals lines of 7. 7 lines of 8. 8 locations of 8. 8 positions. 8 track location. 2 panels of operation. Now, directing communication line centers is 6 over lines of 7 over 8 panels of high calculation. Directing communication lines of 4 and travel calculation lines of 3. Direct calculation line interference sets zero gravity line interference, power direction time sequence, and position of patterns in observation cycles and calculation. Done by equation. Mechanism high force, travel direction time sequence. Puts all platitude division locations of centers. Okay. Now, getting line communication. This is how you set up space, guys. All right. So we've got the reverse and line rotations, one way, and cross line signals locations of both ways. Travel calculation lines of point systems. Traverse of time sequence and pattern calculation. Direct calculation lines, split the anomalies, calculate line interference, set up a yin and yang process position of travel calculations. Direct lines of panels, direct sail, and position locations of solar sails and track locations. Graphing calculations of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 panels of communication. Direct calculation XC thousands, crosses line stream, crosses line stream, crosses line stream, back and center position of its operation surface applications. 4 generation lines, sun comes in, moon comes in, travel calculation line settings, opens all signals and communication settings of point system of future of the now. Done by equation. All right. Very fast, guys. Very fast travel position travel calculations. So we're also going back in time again. Okay, so center position of graph lines, 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. All right. 3 set lines of anomalies and 3 set line conditions. Now we have that 4 line settings. 4 equals lines of 3 equals lines of calculations. Positive locations of 1. 1 indicates high position of box. And triangulation. Now, triangulation is a box. Sets position of point systems. Set position operation. Point system and track line calculation setting. Point system track line high center position. And calculation setting comes into travel lines and point system travel lines and point system travel communication. Now, directing line centers. We have 2 lines of 3 lines. 3 track locations of measures. Calculation of scale lines, sets position of center, sets position of center, sets position of center. Done by equation. Okay, oh, confirmation there. So we went back in time. Child position line centers in position of communication centers of operation. Okay, complicated stuff. All right, so that's all done through point systems and positional polarities. Directing lines are reversing cycles, sets position of travel lines, 1 point center. Travel calculation setting to the moon, opposite cycles of the sun, and communications of portals and realms and calculation. Okay, direct calculation line centers high position of 0, 24, sets position of 48, sets position of 72, center position of 144, and position of 0 calculation. So that comes automatically in 0144 track location setting and all lines, high center interference, and travel direction of time sequence and all positions of patterns in set location. Now, directing lines of communication, platitudes opens all signals, okay, and line connection high centers of 72 track locations. Now, directing line position locations, magnetic highway information line screens sets all operation centers of communication, okay, done by equation. All right, so it's scaled to high calculation settings, modulation line centers and streams.
Sorry, I couldn't skip this.
Sarah wants to join in. All right, so inline rotation centers, we got one graph line center, right? How's everybody doing so far? Okay, same position travel lines is point system of track in position opposite cycles. One way and goes to the calculation setting. This is infinity 8 in a high set location. Very powerful stuff. Center communication is the center lines of calculation, right? Directing communication lines is all levels, a set location of travel lines, a phase direction of time sequence, a future of the now, and center position of operation. Okay, sets position, location, centers. Done by equation. All right. Okay, so setting these things up is really understand how to put things back in center. So this comes into dimensional lock, sets position, location, and line centers, crosses line setting location. Now, directing line calculation lines, 024, sets position of 48, 48 lines of 72, sets track lines in 144 and track locations, box and equal lines into box locations. Triangulation sits on top of set location. Now, directing lines of communication, triangulation sets lines of high center in position operation center. Center lines of communication, a 3-point system in track the line centers into box locations. So that's 4 over measure, 3 lines of pi, sets position 7 of operation. Direct communication line centers, equal lines equation, high center interference. Direct calculations of the patterns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in set locations. Direct cross line streams, 1, 2, 3, 4, sets position, location, and setting. Direct communications of patterns lines in 1, 2, 3 set location of travel. Solar generation line, solar graph calculation setting in position of 144, 72, calculation of 48, in position of 24, in set location of travel recognition. Done by equation. Okay. So understand everything through travel settings. We come back into equation line screen. Direct calculation line centers. So we come into lacing lines of communications, all right, to all set location of travels. See? Sending direct same locations into the earth line centers in high position to its operation surface and set location. Okay? Sets position lines, Schumann resonance comes in 3 core centers in high travel communication. Done by equation. See? See the spherical sphere? It's all set up. All right, so in position line calculation line centers, this is where we come into the subterranean level. 3 line centers in high calculation of point systems of travel. Sets position location across the line signals. Half pipe. Sets position of 6 over 7 over lines of 9 and position of 12 in set location. So comes a modification of center and communication. All right. So this is where we come into 4 panels of boxes and set position to its operation surface. Okay. Triangulate the point system XT1000 line setting in position of 3 centers. This measures its countability in line position of 3 center of communications of travel. Now this gets in position of its location center of operation. See? Setting communication line settings into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 routes at high position. Travel calculus lines of point system of 2 box line connection settings of Mother Earth and travel calculation of transformation. Done by equation. Center communication line centers, all level high calculation setting. Indirect signal and communications all set location. Mother Earth. Okay, so that's set up through 2 box centers. Now we change the set lines of high center interference of Father. Father communicates to high screens. Now direct location line centers all positioned as pi in high centers. Retracking division and reposition of program settings. Now modification lines of 3 platforms sets line communication setting to all levels of operations cerebral cortex line stream location of center. Direct calculation lines that point system of the sun and the moon and track location high centers to its operation surface and set locations. Now, directing line signals comes into 2 patterns, into 3 patterns, into 4 calculation string locations. Now, directing lines would come in a dimensional door line. This puts position of pies in 3 center communication settings of travels and splits anomalies and set position of operation. Setting calculation high interference in 3 sets, 4 set position of travels. Calculation high interference then comes in the same direction in position modulation. Center calculation is capsule, in line position travels, in phase direction of time sequence, and power direction of time and location. Done by equation. How's everybody feeling? It's amazing how we're setting these things up, right? I just wanted to show you how this is all done through equation. Formulas and line settings at anything at location centers attractions, right? So 3 box line centers, all position location centers and the position locations, right? And we've got 3 triangulation and reset position of programs and high position of travels. Okay. Triangulation, triangulation, triangulation. Okay. So box, box, box. Okay. Center calculation high interference and direct signals. Point system that travels. Direct line condition setting crop circle. In center communication setting. In singularities in line rotation centers. In position location of flux capacitors at location. All right. Travelation of time sequence crosses string, right? Sets lines of calculation high interference and 3 lines wires into a light bulb of communication. Intelligence, done by equation. All right. So in fusion line communication setting the travel lines. 2 box line centers, travels lines of 3, and position location of 6 set locations. Travel direction of time sequence fluctuates in the line centers of travels. Direct lines of modification centers, operations circuit location system, calculation modified in all line connection high centers of 1 lines of 9 and position of 6 and 9 in travel communication. Done by equation. All right. Okay, so setting up the calculation line settings. Now we come into light codes. Get into light codes is really understand how to get into flux. That's right, McCall. Very good. So we go through the flux line channel, direct signal location line settings. Now this is an X-ray line screen. X-ray line centers high position travel communications, right? Direct lines of flux, positions of program lines, and high calculation of 3 sets. Track calculation all levels, half pipe, and 2 track location high setting. High position line centers operations surface and retriangulates high position programs and all position line centers in track location system of the operation line setting to magnetic highway information line channel and communication surface and face recognition line calculation setting of the future of the now. Done by equation. That's all set up. Okay, so it's great to see these things, equation line interference. So my fingers have basically gone from 2 million line cycles to 2 billion track locations of box triangulation surface and triangulation reset position programs at finger point line connections. So it's in 2 xt1000 string location. Okay, it was at 1.5 xt1000 set location, right? So each finger is a representation to settings in seconds, minutes, and hours and track locations to measure location. So we all understand how to centerline our communication lines or flux. We understand how to vortex set locations, how to set how calculation line settings into 3 patterns of communications of point systems and track location. Okay, directing lines of communication to 2 xt1000 lines in position location of 3. Calculation lines of scan lines and 3 set location of travel lines and point system high calculation setting, all lines on rotation surface, and a recenter position of our operation location of center. Done by equation. Okay. So recognizing calculations of the time sequence, pattern communication lines are 0, alpha line rotation centers, got a delta communication, and line calculation setting omega. Calculation line interference into theta communication of box and set location of travel. Direct line calculation setting to 2 track locations, right? Crosses string. Sets position of 2 track locations, right? Direct calculation line interference into 0 calculations, 0 gravity, into 024, into months of communication. Now, directing lines and calculation line interference. We have 1 alpha channel, one delta wave, one communication cycle, retract line calculation setting, reversing high position centers, solar direct signals into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 line communication. Now, direct line calculation lines, we go through pi and direct signal. Positions of patterns opens up the operation line cycles and high interference of intelligent lines of weaving communication setting, all calculation modified in high calculation. Done by equation. All right. Getting into the operation lines of 0, bracket communication lines of hanger, calculation of 0, and position location calculation of calculation lines of 24 and 7 trial calculations. Now, directing calculation lines, 0 operation of center opens up signals and modification of line cycles calculation. Now, directing lines of equal line communications comes into triangulation reset position high setting. So we take the bracket communication centers of hangers, direct calculation and triangulation of 3-point systems, and calculation line centers, 3-point systems, and calculations and 3-point systems, lead calculation line interference in 4/3, sets positions of 4, line calculations, all line centers, 8 equals lines of 7, interact location lines of 4, 4 line communication of 3, 4 center lines of space, and 3 set location line settings, sets anomaly calculation lines, alpha, delta, and theta, interact location of bounds, and line position of calculation line streams, and set position of operation. Done by equation. Okay. So everybody's getting into line communication center into when it comes into interface, to understand the programs and how it center lines its calculation stream location of center, how it modifies your system to its location system. Travel recognition timelines, guys, comes into your system locations, all right? Recognizing your frequency patterns or anything through calculation stream location of center. Operates the cycles in communication, all right? So bracket communication centers of a point system. So we get a triangulation box, and set locations, all right? So we come into box line centers and position triangulation of center, box position location of center communication. Now, directing calculation line interference, we have 3 lines of circles, sets position location of 3 lines of operation and travel communications. Now, getting direct signals is a graphing calculation screen, directing lines of communication of point systems, okay? So now I know why you guys need Q&A, because it's very complicated what I'm doing. So we're going through graphic calculation line interference, triangulation, and reset position programs. So we go through 1, position of 2 and 3. We go through our line centers of 3, 6, and 9, travel calculation. That's done through equation. Sets position of 6, 7, 8, and 9 line settings of 10, set location of center, communication. To calculation line interference, in position of 11, and position of 12 in this center, 13 calculations on the calculation lines at left. Sets position locations high center, position locations 6 on line communication setting, and 7 in track location. Direct calculation line interference into 1 position of 2 and 3 in center, track location of 4 and 5 set locations in track location. Direct calculation of 0 lines to 2, 3 line centers and 2 in position whose operation surface in position calculation. Okay, very complicated. Now, in a metric screen in the line calculation setting, we use an XT29 line screen. Okay. Now that sets position, so it's going to travel set lines to calculation lines. It's going to set up inhibitor and line rotation centers of travel. Done through equation. Modified through all center. Okay. Okay, so that's done. So setting an operation line screen is to understand the inhibitors and set position travel calculations. Barcodes are actually a time sequence of box frame. Okay, direct lines are 4-point systems. And again, in triangulation at 3 sets. But this time we cross the stream location. So you got timestamps line calculation of 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and position of 5 in center in communications. All modified in line connection time capacitors in high calculation setting. Right in line setting, left in track locations. Okay. Now, direct signals, we got tubes in position of travel calculations, back and forth in line rotation centers and travel communications. Calculation line interference, galaxy shift lines and magnetic highway information line settings and ultra calculation. Calculation line centers is center communication setting to all levels of operation surface. Direct communication line centers, pyramid stream, astral projections, and all calculations. Done by equation. Okay. All right, so it's really interesting how we set up panels of communication setting. Complicated, isn't it? So, like I said, it's going to get a lot more difficult, but a lot more understanding. Because the thing is, you have to really understand how it's structured of its own design, how everything surfaces in a position of its program. To understand the position of balance is to understand your equilibrium in your position, location, your subtraining line screens, and your direct signal to all levels, how you use your communication setting to your calculations of your all levels consciousness, the sub locations, the subtraining, and the super of its consciousness. 4 track locations, right? So we take the 1 position of 2, 2 positions of 3, 3 positions of 4, and 4 positions of 5 set locations. Digital layers, a track location. Okay. Now, in that line center high interference, it comes into a box location center, guys. Very complicated stuff. Okay. Pay attention. Now, the box location comes out outline centers and 2 track line settings. Okay. In positions of pi. Okay. Now, the pi center line communications sets lines of travels, direct lines of point systems, and all allocated line centers into the heart, mind, and soul set location. Very powerful stuff. Now, the intergeneral line stream location setting comes into 4-point systems. Now, 4 line centers of travel communications. Now, in direct line conditions, you come into 1, you come into 2, you come into 3, you come into 4, and you come into 5 of elements of space location. Done by equation. Okay? That's how you set up a holographic screen. Directing lines of communication centers of all operation. Okay? Now, getting communication to the sun comes into the line screen, but it sets lines of provision cycles and high calculation setting in all of the zone capsule upset design. Okay? So in that track line calculation setting, we come into 0 grounds and position of platforms, but we cross the signals and set location, right? That directs the signals of fluctuation, changes the panel's communication centers of operation. Okay? Now, directing communication X2000 positions of panels, calculation line interference, and we get a line position of center and an XT30000 line screen location of center of operation. Okay? Sets position line calculation setting. Point systems, scans position of center line, scans position of center line. Down by equation. Okay? So that's what you have to understand, how this is all set up through its applications. You get your body tractions and interface, and position calculations, you get all levels of your tesseract. Your tesseract comes in a box line centers and point system to a Rubik's Cube and line communication center of travel. Now, point system line connections all levels of its org. Calculation of center communication. Flywheel calculation string locations. Torque of fields and line position. Now, direct line calculation setting in position of what's above and what's below its set locations, right? Say calculation lines of orbs, calculation probing, indirect signals, calculation modification setting location. So the cubical streamline comes in position of 3 set locations, right? Drive calculation of the sun and the moon comes in position of programs and all calculation modification line settings and travel. So we all understand how to use the body, how to use the track location setting when it comes to light signals, coming in position of probe location setting into detection, into position of high rising, high levels, in track location of center communication. Okay? That equation. So your body is the conception of everything, guys, because it's all levels of consciousness locations. Particle settings, a point system, the 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines, 6, 7, and 8 connections. 1, 2, 3. Sets position of 1 center. Okay? Sets track lines and calculation lines of 3 set locations. Track calculation of 1, in position of 2, in position of 4, in position of 5 and 6, in set location of 8, in center position of operation. So the 8 sets lines in standpoint view, waiting on position. Operation like calculation line centers. 0, 24 sets calculation line centers. Sets position of all levels and coming to 0, 48. Set location high center of 0, 72. Sets track line calculation setting and position location at 0. Sets line calculation 144. And set position operation. Now, directing lines of communication line centers comes in all track location of center of communication. Directing lines of panels and position to its operation. Okay? XT1000 comes in, 2 track lines and 3 lines of panels, and position of 4 set locations. And we get an XT30000 in track location. And we're going to XT 50,000 in track locations, high center, in position to its operation. Okay? Now, in centric communication line centers, the 8 sets lines calculation. So in that line interference, we take 0.24 to 8. We take 0.48 in track locations, 0.72 in track location, and we take 0.144 in track locations of high setting. Indirect say line interference, high position patterns. Now in 4 track location, the sun comes in 4 tractions into north, west, east, and south, and position of center of communication setting to all calculation. Now, directly calculated line interference is planetary line surface. Travel calculates lines of 3 set locations. Indirect location of 3 line centers have position operation. Done by equation. Okay. I know it's complicated, guys, but having patience is everything to set position operation. Getting these things done is we understand how to set position travels. We're at 15 line calculations into 5 set locations, right? We're done, right? I had to wait for my computer frame line get into 15 to 5, and that's where we are, okay? 15 equals lines of 5 equals lines of 8 in track location, all right? So inline interference, set position of 0, 1, 4, 4, track location of team setting. So in that line high interference, his locations is in the box following frame in position north, west, south, and east, and 1 center communication. Congratulations. Direct location high interference is 0.24, track location line settings, high position its operation is high calculation line centers of 0, 144, and track line connections, operation set locations. That's the species line communications. So that's all done through its equation. We're done. See? That's all I had to wait to. I had to wait for the computer frame to get into 15 equals 5, sets position of 8 in position of travel calculation line center. 8 equals lines of 6 and 9 in travel high centers and 19 position of travel. Done by equation. We're done. Everybody's going ring. Nope. Yep. Ring. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. So it's all done. See, I had to wait for my computer frame to get into 15 equals lines of 5. Okay. You've got to understand how to communicate with your body through consciousness, how to calculate and modify how to use your computer frame through all set connections to operation, and how to use the mind at travel by recognition through space and time. Okay? See you in 5. Adios.